now what's most important is me doing it. And so I just like, I found a self-publisher that I really liked. My husband designed he's a graphic designer. He did my cover, my back and front, and a million edits beyond anything. There's still one error that people keep pointing out to me. And I'm like, thank you. But I'm fine with people. Like, I teach people to make mistakes and to fail. It's better to fail than to wonder what if.
Oh, that's a good analogy. So can you elaborate more on that? Because I think really what many of us, I guess growing up, we think that failure is the end goal, and especially with with education, I guess it's been ingrained in you that if you fail at this, you can't get into college, or
Yeah.
or if you want to like do entrepreneurship.
I think with failing, it's such a powerful thing to fail, because when you're failing, when you're crashing and burning, when you're in your worst, I think you learn the most, because you're down. You're at the lowest possible point you could be in. And if you in that sense, when you want to create something, it's never going to be perfect on the get-go, ever. It's always going to be something is different. So by how I see failure is by knowing my definition of success. And my definition of success is doing something, pushing forward. And so failure for me is doing nothing. So as long as I'm not doing nothing, I'm not just sitting back and like waiting for the world to happen to me, then I'm succeeding. And I think that's, as a business owner, you have to, as a business owner, as a person, as a human, like if the first setback that sets you back and like causes you to quit, then you probably aren't doing the right thing.
That's a really great that's a great answer there, because it is true. Like if with retirement, like if people retire from the work, then it in some sense it means that they probably didn't like it. They didn't like it to a degree. They just did it for their paycheck,
Yeah.
and then of course they're off. They're retired until you know the end. But I guess in some sense, if you love what you do, you will never retire per se.
I think it's like one of those ideas that if you love what you do, even the hard times are worth it, for sure. Like it's I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I couldn't imagine being anything but what I am right now. And I look back at how upset I was when I quit acting, and I was like, "Oh, that's so strange, because now you can't get me on stage. I hate it. Like I have no interest in doing it." So that idea of fail, like I'm glad I failed. I'm glad it didn't work out, I guess. I'm glad I didn't end up on like a movie or something that made me a lot of money, because I feel like if I would have, I don't think I would be as happy as I am right now.
That's really good. So now the $1 million question is, how does improv applies to social media?
Oh my goodness. It is like all the things. And I love that we've been in this like side chat on social media about social media being social and consumption. So improv, all it is listening and responding. That's it. Super simple. At its core, you listen to what's happening around you, and listening is not just with your ears, you're listening with your eyes, you're seeing what's happening around you in all senses, and you're responding to your environment. So if you think about social media, like we're not only taking it in, we're responding to it. We're offering, we're adding our opinion, we're adding attention to it. And I'm watching the sun go down in my spot, so I'm just gonna move so I'm like not half in shadows. So I'm gonna keep talking to you, but we're gonna have a little bit of motion go on. So in that sense, like how it attaches to social media, when you're thinking about truly being social on social media, you want to be having a conversation. You want to be responding. You don't want to just be spouting out information. And if you are spouting out information, then you have a really firm reason about why you're doing this. Like, is your means to an end? Is it just because this is what you do and this is the only thing you do? So then that's not social. It's just informative. And there's, oh my gosh, there's so many ties. How does that sound for starters? Like, any thoughts on that?
I don't. Well, to be honest, there's a there's a lot of, because, like, for example, like, if you're like, the problem, I think the problem is that many are using it just to post a message per se. They're not really engaging, and
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me like, that majority, especially like now with the upcoming algorithm changes that's happening with Facebook, many
Mm-hmm.
are running for the hills, calling it Facebook Zero, which it makes me laugh, basically,
Mm-hmm.
because in a lot of ways, I don't think nothing's going to happen that much that's going to be that drastic, because all it is them changing the algorithm to try to make people be more social, and then plus it's their business to do that because it's
And
their
that,
platform.
yeah. And that's the thing, like being social and then tying that to, like, if we were having a conversation like this live moment here, if we're having a conversation, it won't be fun if we're not listening or paying attention to one another. If you ask me like, "Hey Jen, tell me about your book," and I start talking about my dog, then it's this disjointed thing. And that, I think, people do that often on social media for some ungodly reason. And it's the Facebook change in algorithm is attempting to bring it back to the roots of, like, have a conversation. Like, I say something, you say something, I say something back. And in improv, that's actually called a three-line conversation. So I see a lot of my interactions on social media as like three-line conversations where my job is not to negate what someone else said. My job is to add something to it, even if I disagree, because it's all just opinions. So instead of saying like, "Hey, you think that social media needs to be super social, but I like to consume things," that's like, I've negated what you think. And for me, I'm like, "Hey, you think social media needs to be purely social, and some people like consumption. It's okay. I'm just choosing to be social in this too." So it's very. I know people are running for the hills, and I think they're running for the hills because we've automated so much. So
Hmm.
that throws work back on top of people. Like, think about it. Like, like, I love Meet Edgar. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love Meet Edgar. I love the fact that I schedule stuff. Now, if you're not going to show up unless you're like having conversations and being social and being part of it. So now you're basically adding that work back onto your workload. Like, you can't schedule everything anymore. You have to communicate. You have to be part of something. You can't just say, "Okay, well, I've got my month scheduled out," or "My social media intern can run this." Like, businesses and people and museums are terrible at this. And I say that as I sit in a museum. They hand so much of their social media off to interns, and that intern is there for 6 months. It's like, why would you do that? Anyway, you can tell I
Wow.
have feelings. I have feelings about this.
No, I love it. Please talk more about this, because it's no, I'm serious, because I've noticed this, like, especially now, like, I've noticed that with the big name influencers, it seems to me like they're not on there as much,
They're not,
and
and yeah,
I don't know, I guess it's just me starting to notice that more now. It seems to me like they're talking about it and they're this big name, but to me it's like they're not on there interacting, and it's like, I'm not trying to attack them, but I'm
but
just pointing it out.
you're not, and that's the thing. Like, critical conversation isn't attacking people. Examining behavior isn't attacking. It's asking someone to practice what you preach. if if you are talking about being social and on social media and having conversations and starting conversations and you do a talk and you have canned answers that you can tell because you've pushed your answer out before the question has come out. Like, have you noticed that on some things? Like, there'll be a talk happening, and you'll see
Yeah.
like it'll be question one, and then you'll see A2, and you're like, oh, did I miss something? And like 5 minutes down the line, someone sends question two, and it's because someone's social media person got a list of the questions and like is powering through the answers and responses. You're just calling them on what they're saying, what they're preaching. It's the same thing if someone were to tell me like, oh, Jen, like you don't listen to your audience. I teach people to listen to my audience, so I make sure I'm not hypocritical. You're doing the same thing. It's just critical conversation.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I could add to that, what you say, like, I basically, I basically answer with, like, especially, like, for example, with Twitter chats, that's what we're chatting about here. I
Hmm.
basically answer with one A and one B if I have more to add because, I feel like that's one of those things, like, especially to answer a question.
Hmm. That's very different than you jumping a question. So I'm specifically talking about, say question one, like we've planned out our talk, okay? And we, not on this, but say we're doing a Twitter chat together. And my first question is, what's your favorite ice cream? And my second question is, what's your favorite pizza? And someone answers, my favorite ice cream is this. It's so amazing, da 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 da. And then before I ask, what's your favorite pizza? Someone pushes an answer out. My favorite pizza is cheese. And you're like, did I miss a question? Did I jump ahead? And what ended, I see it and I notice it now a lot that certain people that are influencers or self-proclaimed influencers or in any way, they have these can't, so they're not participating in real time. They're participating with someone pushing out their answers. And it's like, just don't do it then. Just don't do it. You can skip
Yeah,
one chat. You can skip one conversation. You can skip one day of tweeting. It's better than being disingenuous.
yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
Like